Hello, everyone. Welcome to Next Big Future. I have my friend Randy Kirk here. We're going to have a three-part series of videos. First one, we'll discuss that Robotaxi is seen to be on the verge of developing and realizing next year by Tesla. And I argue that this is at least a 5 to 10 year lead, and that the only rational move will likely be for other car companies to join with Tesla via licensing. Then we'll discuss the impact on Tesla's share price and the timing of what will happen there. And then in the third part, we'll discuss how this is just not an ordinary um, stock event and other things, that it does change the world, and it does radically impact not just car companies, but everything as well, because it's such a shift. So let me present the what I have on why it's a 5 to 10 year lead first, and then we'll discuss it. Okay. So we've had the Cybercab reveal. We've had Tesla AI, Ashok Haraswamy, saying that the version 13, which is releasing this weekend to internal people, internal Tesla employees, and then wide to all Tesla owners who purchased FSD pretty much next month, that this will be a feature complete unsupervised version that was 5 to 6 times safer than other recent versions of FSD.
Now, my suspicion would be, this is just a guess, Brian, but my guess would be that it doesn't necessarily mean that version 13.1 or whatever it is, the version that we get, which I think might be 13.3 based on some other things I've seen, that if 13.3 is the release approximately at Thanksgiving, that doesn't necessarily mean that one will be unsupervised, but rather sometime in the 13 series will be the unsupervised version. Okay.
Right. But they did operate version 13 at the Robotaxi Day with 50 vehicles, some Cybercabs, 20 Cybercabs, and 30 Model 3, Model Y. So it did operate for thousands of rides there without supervision. And it's also on the road. We don't know how many that are doing ride hailing with supervised, but presumably if it works, the supervisors are just there for safety for some reason, right? So it's already doing something very approximate to Waymo at scales not dissimilar from what Waymo is doing.
Right.
Okay, so this is from Frida Dwan showing how things have scaled up. So you'll notice at the very beginning, January 2024, 12.1 comes out, one of the earliest versions of the full end-to-end neural network, where they took out 300,000 lines of coding from the version 11 version of it. And by internal disengagement metrics from Tesla, this increased by 100 times. The big jump was from 12.3 to 12.4, 10 times, and then 3 times from 12.4 to 12.5. We're basically at 12.56 now across most of the vehicles, the 400,000, 500,000 vehicles in the United States that have it. And then the expectation is this 5 to 6 times improvement when version 13 comes out next month. And then were statements that this would increase 1,000 times over 2025. And Frida has put in another 5 to 6x to some version 14 that would then surpass human driving. The human driving range is just not one number. There's people who have 3 times the normal average disengagement. Those would be called teenage drivers, and perhaps some bad senior drivers.
Never mind. No, that wouldn't be true.
The worst drivers in general that you come across, like on a bell curve, the one at the low end, are 3 times worse. So if you're within 3 times of that, then you're basically at the level of a teenage driver. So that's why these 5, 6 times leaps mean you're leaping over from bad to, hey, pretty good driver, right? So that human experience is not that wide. So this is the rate of improvement. So another key fact is that when Frida Dwan and others, and there were some Chinese academics who tested the Chinese systems, compared them to the Tesla systems, and they compared Waymo and Cruise to Tesla. But they often say that everyone else is at version 11, which is before, the end of 2023, before this chart starts, right? Because version 12 was an improvement over that, the hand coding of a lot of these systems. And you can imagine that because most all the other companies did not go to high volumes of data, did not go to a full AI neural net approach. They have AI, but not for the whole thing. So they had a lot of hand coding. So Tesla's mix of hand coding and some automation was approximate to these other systems that used a lot more sensors and hyper mapping. So map an entire area, like because you only have small parts of San Francisco and Phoenix, Arizona, and parts of LA for Waymo that they hyper map. And so their system is brittle. It works. It uses the crutch of sensors in order to do that. So years to switch. So you have to choose to remove all your sensors except the cameras. Tesla took some months to remove a small number of like ultrasonic and other sensors to not use those. That took some time. So if you go from a different approach with sensors to without, that is a switch. And the training you did before with sensors does not apply to the new system with sensors. And then you have no training wheels. You go without training wheels. Tesla had hardware 3 and hardware 4. Half their cars are hardware 3, half got hardware 4, which was introduced later. The main point here is that Tesla has already said that it's very difficult to get hardware 3 to work, beyond, 12.4. That it is more and more difficult to get that system in. They have to take some time to get it working hardware 4 first, and then go back and find a bunch of optimizations to squeeze in the system to get to a hardware 3 capable approach. So this pretty much means that anyone who's copying this needs to have hardware 4 or better hardware in all the cars they're going to use to gather data.
And to the extent that they're not even at hardware 3 at this level, I mean, I don't think anybody would argue that their chip is as good as the current FSD chip.
And pretty much 99% of the car companies out there and robotaxi companies are using NVIDIA chips. They do not make their own custom chips. There is some one-off cases where someone's trying to use some startups' chips, but it's a company is generally far smaller than NVIDIA, far smaller than Tesla, who are using a chip. So it is so far probably unlikely that the NVIDIA chips alone would be sufficient to do this. The using of power. So it is a non-trivial lift to get the right chip into your system. And then the other thing is that these companies are buying from NVIDIA, are buying from Tesla. If they chose to license from Tesla and Tesla has a solution, Tesla has a hardware 4 or hardware 5 chip or AI4, AI5 chip, they renamed it, that if Tesla had it all working, say next year, right, end-to-end, full-featured, supervised, NVIDIA does not offer a complete solution. They offer the chip, they offer the hardware, and this nice little block diagram, everything they offer, but it does not have all the data. It does not have a trained system, right? It just think here, you have, a Intel 8600 whatever chip, go to town. Go make it on your own. Make this wonderful thing, right? We're still on you, the company, to do this thing. And we had that, right? So the journey is 2023. Yep, Tesla had all the chips into millions of cars at the end of 2023.
Sure.
They spent years developing up to version 11. They still had to convert to end-to-end. They converted in 2023 and then implemented in 2024. They had to unify their city driving and highway driving. And again, most of the Chinese companies are only doing often they're choosing one side or another. They're starting with city driving for like Waymo, and then didn't go to the highway for a long time. So that is a non-trivial gap to get both city and highway working, and then to unify your city and highway because again different problems. And then Tesla got 2 billion miles of driving from January to now, driving data. So you need to have a lot of cars to do that. We'll discuss that a bit more later.
Okay.
Tesla also had testing systems. They automated their labeling. because they have to like label what's going on in the visual field. They got that completely automated to not have any human in the loop on their labeling. Also to pick out scenes from the video they recorded. And they're sending gigabytes of recorded video of driving back to the central system. And again, if other companies are not doing that, they have to do that as a first step before they can start learning. If you're not recording it, you're not like actually paying attention, you cannot learn what it is happening. So you could drive all these miles, but if you're not sending all the data back
Right.
and highlighting the 1 in 10,000 cases where it actually matters, because most of the time nothing's really happening. You're just doing regular driving. But when an incident occurs, that's 1 in 10,000 times. So you have to get a lot of miles so you can get like 10,000 incidences out of a billion miles of driving. But then you have to record them all. Otherwise, it happened like a tree falling in the forest, and you didn't know, right?
Mhm.
And then you have to have proper scoring of human drivers because Tesla introduced a driving score, which said, okay, you follow too close, you do these things too badly, you're not a good driver based on our metrics. Why is this relevant? The AI system started not just copying, should I turn here, should I do this, and then based on that, they looked at we score and determine these are the best drivers. These are the 99% best driver people, the top 1% or top 0.1%. And then they hyper focus on that to model and copy their driving behavior. So that's all. And there's, more things, but those are some of the big things that another company had to do before they start copying Tesla. And this goes to that 2 billion miles of driving. You can see, that it really just took off, from March 2023. And then, version 12 FCC miles, they got another billion miles of that. So it's a lot of driving. Most other companies like Waymo are doing like 150,000, 300,000 miles per week. So then you do 50 times that, and then you're at, maybe 15 million miles, right? So if you don't have that many cars, you're not getting that many miles, you cannot do the training in the Tesla approach. Tesla had 500,000 cars with hardware 4 or hardware 3 equivalent on the roads with FSD, people using those systems. So basically, that is a huge lift. And so I say that that's a 5 to 10 year lead, to get to, a year or two for most, at least to get to that point where they can start. And it costs, if you're building all those cars and people aren't buying them, or if you're selling them, that involves $10 billion of hardware or something like that to get onto the road, right? So
Right.
it's like a huge cost to do with production things. So you have to have the factory to do it, you're partnering with someone, and there's huge risk. So I would say that if you know you're gonna have a 5 to 10 year uh, um, delay in getting to winning, then it seems that the less risk approach is just buy it from Tesla, just license from Tesla. I don't have to spend 5 billion years. I don't have a 5 year project, 10-year project where I don't know if I can do it. And you know that the Tesla will win. And then you can focus on other things. So what do you have reaction to that?
Yeah, so I think that I've been learning a lot this week. CERN Basher made his trip up to Calgary and back, and I think there was some great learning in that. And people can go back and take a look at that video over on my channel. We have it is amazing how many edge cases there are.
Mhm.
So I did a video, I think it was about a month ago, where I said, why wouldn't Tesla at least put out the Robotaxi now? Put it out now and have limitations. So the limitations could include it can't go. So it wouldn't necessarily say you can only go here, but it could be like when you're driving a car on Maui and you get a rental car and it says you can't go on this road. If you
Mhm.
go on that road, you're not covered by the insurance, and if you break the car, you're not covered there either. So you can have places where you can't go, or situations where you can't go. Yesterday there was some video or some uh, uh, positions taken on X where they were talking about how Waymo routes itself around difficult situations. So if there's a hard left turn, the Chuck Cook left turn. Well, you don't make that left turn. You find a way to get to your destination without having to make that hard left turn. Well, you could eliminate lots and lots of hard situations if you wanted to, just to make sure it doesn't get into difficulty. You could eliminate certain highways, even entire highways, because you're not ready for going 65 miles an hour. So these are all, and there's many, many more ways that you could limit the system and still have an effective robotaxi system. It wouldn't be very good for a consumer who's driving their own vehicle and wanting to be chauffeured in their own car, because you wouldn't want it to always be making these, decisions not to go places. But for a robotaxi, it might work. So back to the CERN example. CERN says, okay, I'm going, 7,000 miles in 10 days from Florida to Calgary. I'm taking very careful notes on the entire trip. And he's going along a 2-lane road, a very fast road, 65, 70 miles an hour, whatever. But it's one lane in each direction, the old country road type situation. You don't see many of them anymore, but they're still out there. And the car went to pass a truck. But the car thought it was 2 lanes in the same direction. And there was another car in that other lane coming right at him. And he had to, make a decision to get right back in behind that truck. And then he says later on, it made the same decision again. This time the car was way far down the road, but it still seemed to believe it was okay and just kind of paralleled the truck this time. And he waited as long as he could, but then he accelerated and passed the truck. And did a disengagement. So that's not such an odd circumstance, but it is something which you need millions and millions, apparently billions of miles before you catch all these even kind of normal cases. And so that would speak to your case exactly, that in order to be able to actually be a functioning chauffeur or robotaxi, it's going to have to drive those 6 billion miles that Elon's talked about.
Right. And the other thing about the billion of miles is that when assuming that there are maybe 12% adoption rate for FSD within the United States right now, by Q1 of next year, they claim that they'll have the European and China approvals, which could triple the market for that. If the adoption rate from a really, really good FSD, better than human, what they're talking about, happens, then that would mean probably 6 times as many. So as the number of vehicles increase, you could have instead of 2 billion miles by middle of next year, you could have another 10 billion miles. And then by if you're going at 5 billion miles per month, you could have a 40 billion miles, which even goes to the lead. As you accelerate and can do things without limit, then the number of miles, as you also merge highway and city driving, it could really accelerate. So we're going to discuss the timing of that and what that means for the share price, and what that means if the other car companies agree with my belief that they need to license from Tesla. So we'll join that in our next video. So join us there. Thank you.